All right, folks, welcome back into another Mancast. Ed and Chad coming back at you for another one. This is Mancast episode 13, Crime in America from the Top Down. We're going to take a look at the criminal element that is unfortunately running very thick in the United States today. Crime is on the rise everywhere, including the government. With that, that should be a good way to toss it over to you. Can you tell us a little about the Biden crime syndicate there, Ed? What do you say, buddy?
Well, I think for anybody who has a brain in their head, and what I mean by that, if you are so politically captivated, my team versus your team, that you can't objectively look at the facts that have been coming out against the Bidens, then shame on you. I have such little tolerance left for the cheerleaders on both sides of the aisle here when one of their people are in trouble, that it's okay. It's okay that this malfeasance is going on with our guy because he's our guy and it doesn't matter. I'm so sick and tired of the Durham report itself. For those who have taken the time to actually read it, which me and you and maybe two other people in this country, nobody else does. And then they'll have these really strong opinions on what it means when they never read it. It's incredible how that happens. But if you read the Durham report, it is quite crystal clear that this is a RICO case that could be easily have been made by the FBI. It's powerfully strong. And if this was a syndicated crime family, this is how they got John Gotti, for instance, they've already would have arrested literally dozens, if not hundreds, from the leaders to the capos to the rank and file. They'd be getting people to flip on each other. They'd be doing whatever they need to do. Instead, the largest policing, strongest, heaviest weight policing department in this country, maybe in the world, is running cover for the Democrats. And for the life of me, I cannot figure out why people aren't more outraged by this. The Crichton family, and I called them the Crichton family, not the Biden family. I do that on purpose because they are a syndicated crime family, and the facts are in, and there's no rational person can still cheerlead on the Bidens and say they're innocent. They are guilty as sin, and the Durham report proves it.
Well, and it doesn't just prove it's them. We obviously, it proves that they're guilty. It proves that the Clintons are dirty as sin, but back all the way up to the Obamas. Is it John Brennan, who was the CIA director at the time?
Yes.
During the Obama. So John Brennan was briefed that the Hillary Clinton campaign was going to be putting out a hit job, false information about Russia and Trump's campaign colluding. And again, the cable specifically said it was going to be a false narrative created by the Hillary Clinton campaign. And Brennan actually went, there's now record of it from the Durham report. Brennan went to the White House, into the Oval Office, sat with Barack Obama, and explained to him that this was going to happen. And instead of letting anybody else know below them in the chain of command, they kept it quiet. And they actually, when the Steele dossier rolled in, they didn't tell any of the other agents below them that they had already heard that this was coming. They just pretended like it was real. So we know Barack Obama and we know John Brennan both knew for a fact the Steele dossier was bunk. We know on record they talked to each other about the Steele dossier that was coming was going to be bunk. And they didn't inform their underlings so that their underlings would full-throated go ham on this. And then the underlings went so far off the wall because, well, they were being pushed from the top to do so, as to run with this investigation with nothing at all to base it on other than some bullshit media presentations that had zero merit to them.
Right. We just found out, too, that during this entire time that this was going on, they changed how bonuses were given away in field offices so that all the field offices would drop like, I don't know, child slavery, drug cartels, things that really matter to Americans, and move away from that, and spy on people at PTA meetings and write down their license plate numbers and waste all their time so that they could get bonuses coming in over things that had nothing to do with anything at all. It was all just a smoke screen so that they could, at the top, keep everything under control, because they're completely under control now, 100% by the DNC, and the FBI are literally the same organization at this point.
Well, you have to include everybody at the top on the RNC side as well. Mitch McConnell does nothing but run block for all these people. It's the same team. Lindsey Graham, same freaking people. I would say 70% of all of the echelon Republicans are on the same team as the
I agree.
party.
I mean, we say the same thing right now about these the special committee hearings that they're having. Here we go again with another champion tough guy, Jim Jordan, who has all the power in the world to subpoena and have people arrested and have their lives put at stake and their freedom put at stake. And he has done nothing, just like Trey Gowdy. They're just so full of shit. They're not going to do anything at all.
Let me tell you a little story about a dog and a pony. And it's every one of these hearings.
Yep.
And they're going to have more. But
sure.
As far as the Durham report is concerned, I believe they'll have hearings based on what has been found. But Durham, just like Comey and like everybody else in the government who even decides they'll actually admit the government had some fault, they always say, well, I don't recommend any charges. There shouldn't be any really actually. We should just follow the law closer next time. Yeah, we broke it, but no charges should be recommended. That's always the case. So what I've come to conclude is there's literally no mechanism built into our legislation and our legal codes that forces the government to hold itself accountable. There's nothing, and they're never going to do that.
No,
they're never going to pass a law. Like I would pass a law that's called oh gosh, I mean, if you falsify a FISA warrant, you go to prison act. So, right.
If you lie to, if you're an elected official and you get caught lying to any court, you automatically get sentenced to 1,000 years in prison and every dime you ever earn taken away from your family and given to charity. How about that?
Bring it on.
Right? Well, hold them accountable somehow, because there's no accountability, and that's the biggest problem. And now we're finding, because of justice needing to be served and racism and reparations, apparently now, if you're a street criminal in any major city, that's also now legal. So it's not just the people at the very top anymore. You can just literally do whatever you want and get away with it, unless you're middle class. Now you got special rules for us.
It's funny you should say something about reparations. The funniest thing about that for me, Thomas Sowell, black guy, brilliant, educated economist from Stanford, has said, and has
brilliant even a big enough word for him?
Probably not.
Has
cited the fact that there have been more African pirates that have enslaved Europeans in history than vice versa. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. And
slave.
So if you want to do reparations,
Slavic. Because the Persians were going around and up all the white Slavic people and enslaving them, and they did that for 1,000 years.
Well, yeah, don't even get me started on Islam and Middle Eastern slavery. It was a whole dramatically bigger thing than anybody else has ever done. So
whatever race you're from, no matter what the color of your skin or what your religious affiliation is, somewhere in the history of time, your people were enslaved.
Amen. So, so back to the Durham report. For me, the saddest part about it is it reveals that once again, there's no accountability for anybody. But second of all, I don't think they're going to change anything about Jim Jordan has said they're going to try to change something about the FISA warrant process. But I'll believe it when I see it. And that process, the FISA warrant, these closed, sealed, classified warrants that they don't have to have any real evidence, really, if they, I mean, and because nobody's ever going to see if they did. If they can just, if the judge is willing to rubber stamp it, there's no oversight whatsoever.
I have a solution to this problem. So the way that we can keep everything above board and make sure that everything's fair is we get rid of the FISA court because it's illegal and it's fucking stupid. It needs to go away. And you know what? And this is for every Republican that may be listening to this, the rah-rah go American Republicans, the patriotic Republicans, you know who you are. The Patriot Act done by Bush II is the single most freedom, liberty crushing thing this government has ever enacted. It gave us the TSA. It gave us the FISA courts, and it allows our government to pretty much take the Constitution of the United States and flush it down the toilet and do whatever the hell they want to do.
True story. And then every year comes around the, was it the NDA, National Defense Authorization Act,
yes.
The NDAA. And that's the one that continues to fund all this shit. So
it's great how they name these things too. The Patriot Act. Only a patriot would give up all his constitutional rights. What the hell? So dumb.
Right. I'm surprised like all the tax codes aren't called like the Give You Your Money Act.
The Charitable Government Act. The Altruistic Americans for Freedom Act. That's what we should call it. I mean,
we swear you don't have a gun to your head act.
That's right. We're not forcing you to do this because you volunteered this by birth and getting a social security number.
We totally won't take your house and make you destitute act.
Well, I mean, what the hell? I mean, we can't have 12-year-olds can't buy cigarettes, for instance, drive a car or vote. But they are intellectually experienced and smart enough to be able to decide to change their gender. So the only thing, you remember when DC Comics wanted to make things really interesting in the Superman world, and they had the Bizarro world where everything was backwards and Superman was the bad guy. That's where we live right now. We're in the Bizarro world.
True
where
story.
The government is portrayed as this great bringer of honest and truth for the little guy. And in reality, they are the largest evil entity in the history of the world. And we still have people cheering them on. And again, it goes back to what we said in pre-production, what I said earlier, is if you are a rational thinking person of just modern, modest intelligence, you cannot look at the things that are going on in this country and come away thinking that it's okay. So when you're following groupthink or that hive mind kind of mentality, that's a choice that you're making. And if that is the choice that you're making, please, if you see me anywhere, never talk to me, because there's literally nothing that we can have a conversation about because you can't think for yourself on any level. And I have no tolerance for that.
I'll talk to you for a minute, long enough to tell you you're stupid. Anyway, speaking of crime, by the way, you said something about genital mutilation for minors and so forth, and things that ought to be a crime that seem like they're not, and that they're doing covertly. It used to be a crime to be lewd and lascivious in front of children.
Yes.
It used to be a crime. Hot pedophiles used to be held to very high standards, high levels of, societal chastisement and, being put on. But not anymore, man. We are that crime is on the rise because all of the repercussions are on the decline.
Well, check this out. When I was in junior high school, when Sports Illustrated put out the swimsuit issue, they took all the swimsuit pages out of Sports Illustrated so that preteen and teen boys couldn't look at women wearing string bikinis. And now, if you're 12 years old, if you're 10 years old, in some schools, if you're 8 years old, You can go and you can get books that not the way the left describes these things, or even people on the right who are okay with this, they describe it like it's some witch book burning party kind of thing that's going on here. Some of these books are literally descriptively, graphically with illustrations on how to have homosexual sex.
I don't want hustler stories in the school
No,
library any
it's
more
an
than I
absurd.
want
It's absurd.
that book called "This Book Is Gay,"
It's
right?
absurd.
Which graphically depicts how you consume a male's semen, which graphically depicts, how underage kids can hook up with older age people in secret, how to get on
How two
apps,
teenage boys can have anal sex, or how two teenage girls can have cunnilingus.
how to get
These
on
aren't
apps to
things
hook
that
up.
are intended for the consumption of children. I mean, we have pornography is in the eye of the beholder. But until somebody can give me the best description possible so we know exactly what it is when we're viewing it or reading it, how about we just keep it out of our school-age children's reach until we come as adults to a clear conclusion on what it is. We can't even have rational conversations about things that should easily be able to be spoken about. And one of my largest problems at large with all these militant like the LGBTQ has become so militant about what they want. Pedophilia is next, where if you think a pedophile is a bad person, you're a piece of shit, right? That's next. It's the only thing left. Everything else has been normalized to the best that they can, and they want to continue to normalize it. My problem with any of this is I don't care what two consenting adults are doing. And that's two adults, not children, or a child and adult. But two consenting adults, or 20 consenting adults, I don't care. Have at it and do whatever you want to do. That's your business. But outside of that, somebody's got to protect the children. And if we're the last guy standing there to do it, then so be it. But I'm going to fight back against this shit as long as I draw breath because it's disgusting. It's wrong. Any person with even the slightest bit of a moral compass has to know that this is wrong.
Yeah, I contend that anybody who ever has the words minor attractive person fall out of their stupid face should be immediately choke slammed. Like, wow, like what the fuck did you just say? Yeah, man. Like we can't have it. We got to draw the line, dude. Like
I do want to say for the sake of our audience. All right, look, Biden, by the way,
these are all jokes.
Biden, the president, is not a minor attracted person. He's incestuous with his daughter. That's different, and it's worse.
He sniffs a lot of kids, man.
Well, his daughter wrote pretty extensively in her diary about him taking showers with her as a teenager. So I'm pretty sure that's weird for everybody except for Michael Jackson fans, because then it's totally normal.
I'm just saying I've seen the way he handles kids and I've heard the things he says. And like in that recent speech where he talks about I was 33 and she was 14 and and then talks about all the kids. I love the kids bouncing on my lap. And then you just see the way he handles kids and the way
I like the way they stroked my floating blonde hair on my leg in the pool.
Dude, he's such a creeper, man.
And there are people
so obvious,
and there are people who will admit out loud that they voted for this fucking guy.
I don't get it, but
you have to be brain dead to vote for this guy, man. I mean, what is wrong with people?
Jesus. Well, speaking of that guy and speaking of high crimes, the more we find out about the Biden crime syndicate, the better it gets. Mm-hmm. And the less it seems like there'll ever be any accountability for it.
There'll never be accountability for any of these people. That's the problem. To me, is the largest problem of it all. I understand that there is an extraordinary amount of malfeasance when you have that kind of power and money. But the fact that we catch these people red-handed and do nothing about it. Meanwhile, mind you, with Trump, they're literally making things up, inventing new law, just doing anything they can because they can't get anything on this guy. And the Bidens have a mountain of evidence of their corruption, and nobody wants to do a thing. Which just goes to prove that if you're a swamp creature on the inside of Washington, no matter how horrible or despotic or disgusting a human being you are, that's totally cool. But don't be an outsider and come in, because that's when the gloves come off. That's Trump. I'll tell you all about it.
No shit. All this, just every bit of it reveals that the deep state runs everything. That, the CIA, the top echelons of the FBI, that the top generals in the military industrial complex, the everybody in high levels of the Department of Defense, that they run the show, and they're all cleaning up, and we have this illusion that's baked into everything we learn in school and everything we see growing up, that we're above that we're not like those countries that do that. And then you realize we're just the same, like only maybe worse. And you look at Ukraine, what they're doing right now, and you see that the oligarchs are all the bankers, the oligarchs, high level military generals are all buying Rolls Royces and fucking crazy houses and shit right now, right? Zelensky himself is just siphoning money off like crazy. So everybody in the top of that, and that incredibly corrupt nation, that everybody from the Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, all of them just a few years ago were all admitting, Ukraine was the most corrupt nation, one of the most corrupt nations, if not the most corrupt nation on the planet, a hotbed for, weapons, black market weapons dealing, all of these issues. And then magically it's just like, we're not supposed, you can't even say anything about that, or you're a Russian asset, you're a Putin puppet, you're all this dumb shit. And it's like, no, if you even start to talk about the Minsk Accords, the Minsk agreements with these people, it's such foreign knowledge to them. Like, you might as well be speaking an alien language.
Well, you are, and so, because they don't even know what the Minsk Accord is. They've never heard about it. So it is an alien language to them.
And repeatedly, we have violated it. Repeatedly. And the red line from Russia's side has been repeatedly moved. And so, the CIA and all of the propaganda from the top and everything that's gone on with the Bidens leading up to this, all the shit, all the dealings they've done over in Ukraine, it all comes to a head. And you just see that this is the exact same business that every one of these countries would run if they had the same level of power, right? We're not any different. Again, probably worse, because we have the power.
And then on top of that, Zelensky's a puppet that we put into power there. They literally brought him to the United States of America to beg Congress for billions and billions of dollars. And then our press and our administration made it seem like he was the second coming of Abraham Lincoln. The guy is an authoritarian dictator. Does anybody even know that this guy was using what do the you're better at this than I am, remembering the names of some of this stuff. What is the Nazi regime like strong arm they have in the Ukraine that they send out?
The Azov battalion is
they literally killed over a 5-year period of time over like a few thousand Russians they didn't want in their country, right? I mean, isn't it like genocide? Isn't that against all known law, even on the world level? And this is what was going on, and they make it seem like this is okay. Putin
in World War II. Real quick, let me get back to it. In World War II, when Germany invaded Russia and killed 1 in 7 Russians, they went right through Ukraine. So it might be kind of a fucking sticking point, right? And that was the third time, by the way, in like 2 centuries that had happened. So,
right. So here we have this organization. When Putin was going on the world stage, saying that there are Russian nationalists who happen to live in the Ukraine, because that's where they're from, but they're Russian nationalists, and that you have Zelensky and this force forcing these people out of the Ukraine or just flat killing them. He went to the UN and said, y'all keep doing this and there's going to be fucking hell to pay. He wasn't kidding, obviously. Trump's the one who got this guy to calm down a little bit. Uh, and he also got Zelensky to play more fair than he was. I don't want to say to play fair because nobody on the national stage does that anymore, or ever did. But I find it interesting that we have these narratives to paint people a certain way. And then when we actually have people in our society who actually are heroes, legitimately speaking from their own actions and deeds, not words, not the platitudes that come out of their mouth about themselves because they're running for office, but people who are really good human beings that are actually trying to do a good thing, like Tulsi Gabbard. And then we turn her into a Putin operative because she has the balls. This woman defended her country with honor for years, went in country and was involved in war, right? She wasn't sitting on the sidelines. And we're going to call her out and call her a Putin loyalist? What? For what reason? Because she said the truth and they couldn't take it. And her own party, the Democrat Party, turned on her in a heartbeat because the people who lead that party are the same people who have been leading that party all along, the Clinton family and the Obama family. And if they tell everybody in their party to jump everybody in the party in unison, goes how high?
Well, another thing I've learned that is rampant across the world, not just this sort of, this grift with military incursions, the grift between the energy boards and, all the weapons and stuff like that get transferred, and how guilty so many of these administrations are. One thing I learned that is ubiquitous across the world is it seems like almost every nation has some sort of a pedophile crime ring where their version of the CIA buys or captures kids in different manners, and then they use those kids as honeypots to entrap elite members of their society or politicians or powerful people, and then they use that to lord over them so that they're captured. And so one thing I ran onto just being somebody who's interested in like the Epstein stuff and everything like that, that popped up in my YouTube feed was this woman who I believe she was from Bolivia, and she had been sold into child sex slavery when she was very young into an elite crime syndicate where they were, pimping these kids out to elitists and politicians in order to blackmail them. And the more I watched that, and I ended up watching another one from a girl from a different country, and then all of a sudden they start showing up my feed more and more and more, and I'm like, holy shit. And they're from all these different countries, and I'm like, this is the same shit that happened with Epstein. It's the same shit that happened with Franklin School. It's the same shit that happened with Jerry Sandusky. This thing happens all over the world where they use children to capture elites and politicians and powerful people.
Don't forget the Catholic Church, who is probably one of the largest purveyors of this kind of disgusting sexual content.
So they do it a ton, and they hide it. Their biggest crimes were the cover-ups, sending all these guys around, all these priests around, trying to hide what they did. This is different in the fact that they're using kids to blackmail people. But why are so many of these rich and powerful people so easily entrapped by children? That's what I don't fucking understand.
Well, I have a theory on that we've talked about.
Yeah.
These people with this kind of power and money that is unlimited, they're above the law and they know it. They're absolutely above the law. That's what we're talking about right now, is how above the law they actually are. They can do whatever they want. So they can't get their rocks off anymore. For you to get behind the wheel of a car after a couple of beers, you're taking a risk. If you're a powerful person and you have real money and you have real power and you get behind the wheel of a car and you're smashed out of your mind, you risk nothing because you'll be protected. So they go through their lives without really anything hanging over their head, no punishment, nothing can happen. It's hard to get excited. So they get to more and more extreme levels to push the envelope, to get somebody to pay attention, to put themselves on the edge. And some of this weird shit with pedophilia seems to be where they like to go at the end of the day. Will anybody do anything if I have sex with a child, for instance? And it's clearly the answer to that is no. So, but I think that's why they do it. I think it's all very psychological that these people, I think all people, except for the truly psychopathic, they want to be held to account at least a little bit. Why do you think the Biden's kids did everything that they did? You didn't forget that laptop and you didn't forget your fucking diary. And anybody with a brain knows that didn't happen. These kids are screaming out, "We are horrible. We're disgusting. Somebody needs to stop what this family does." Their own kids are trying to make that happen. Imagine being Hunter Biden or his sister. I mean, and you purposefully went out on your way and handed a laptop with all the evidence you need to uncover it, or a diary that shows what a sycophantic piece of shit your father is, and nobody does anything.
Yeah, well, I guess
that's a level of hell I don't understand.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before. That's some subconscious shit where you're just hoping that dad gets caught, but
because he's evil.
Part of it is they're in a drug and dose stupor too, because they both use a lot of drugs, a lot of crack apparently.
If I could promise you, if I came from that family, I'd probably be pretty fucked up on drugs too. Jesus, and not because I wanted to have fun either.
It's a crime family, and so
really
just to escape from all that.
But if you look at Hunter Biden himself, all the trouble, all the things that he has done to put himself right on the firing line, that he should have been made to pay, and somebody should have been paying attention. Throughout the course of his lifetime, this stuff starts all the way back in his teens, right? And every single time, it's just whitewashed away like it never happened. The dude illegally, the Dems, 1,000 times more than Republicans, want to take every gun away from every human, right? That's what they want more than anything else on earth, is to get rid of your guns. But he goes out and breaks three separate federal firearm charges, should have gotten 30 years in prison, $250,000 in fines. He wasn't even charged. But Hunter Biden knows there's nothing he can do that'll ever get him in trouble. His wife
who just threw it in the trash can.
Just threw it in the trash. Out of high school, mind you. Just throw it right here.
Additionally, like, he banged his brother's widow.
Got divorced from his wife after he started banging his, and then ended up with her. How fucking weird is that?
He had an illegitimate child with a stripper, and he refuses to acknowledge her. This guy's the fucking scummiest of all, dude. He's the scummiest of fucking all.
And then he's selling his paintings for $500,000.
Blow art. Perfectly named.
Because he does lots of blow. And not only is he doing that, but didn't he also put on his taxes that he pays $50,000 a month in rent for his house? But he's claiming poverty so he doesn't have to pay an illegitimate child. Poverty? You're paying $50,000 a month in rent?
Well, wait, they passed an executive order so that anybody who buys his blow art, their identity will be sealed.
Right.
So the rest of us can't know.
So
that oligarchs or all of the oligarchs in fucking Ukraine
right? Because right now there are Ukrainian oligarchs who have literally bought tens of millions of dollars of art that the only way it would be displayed anywhere else in the world is if it was a kindergarten's art show. Other than that, you'd never see it because it's garbage.
Paid somebody to light it on fire.
Oh my God! So right, they're buying they're buying access to his father, and let's face it, Joe Biden would sell. If he was guaranteed right now, no matter what he says about his kids or his wife, if he was guaranteed today, you will win the next election, but you have to go out on TV and say that your brothers and your wife and your fucking 8-year-old granddaughter who got $250,000 for no reason from China. All these people conspired to set you up. You have the proof. They all need to go to jail, and you'll never talk to them again. That fucker would get in front of a camera and do it in a heartbeat. He'd sell out everybody in his family, all 7 of his grandchildren, his wife, all of them, and he wouldn't even blink an eye at it. Not at all. They're just gross. Can't argue. They're just gross. And so I think I was listening to another podcast, and the guy on the podcast was making a very strong point. Just stop looking through all of this stuff through your own political lens and just look at the facts of it. Try to remove politics from it. Read the Durham report as if it was actually against a John Gotti-like crime syndicate. And what conclusion would you come to? Well, almost all people from that angle would say, you got them. And all these people are going to go to jail finally. And now New York's crime, for instance, because that's where Gotti was from, that will, at that level, drugs will be diminished and illegal gambling will be diminished and robbing or strong-arming people will be diminished because we're going to get rid of all these people. That's the only conclusion you can come to, because that whole thing reads as a RICO statute report on how to take down a crime family. You can't have 23 different LLCs and none of them, not one of them, describe what it is they actually do. They don't produce anything. They don't do anything. And there's 23 of them. So what you do is that's how you make your money go through that. And the reason we came up with RICO is when they do things like this, you can still get at the top guy. Gotti was gotten to not because they ever caught Gotti personally doing anything, like having a check directly written to himself, which is apparently what the mainstream media wants to have happen here. Well, we don't have a check from a Chinese government official directly to Biden, and it doesn't count. Wrong. You set all this stuff up so that you can find how he's getting paid, even though he's trying not to leave a trail. And the Durham report spells it out in black and white as well as I've ever seen. To say that
The Comer report. The Durham report is the one about the Crossfire Hurricane investigation.
Oh, yes. Right. My bad.
Yeah, the Comer report or revelations are the one that you're speaking of, but I feel you. Yeah. Just for clarification.
Well, yeah, you're right. So this thing is spelled out and it's there. The Durham report, and then on top of that, is just reiterating for those who wanted proof that the DNC and Hillary Clinton, along with the FBI, tried to steal an election, which is what they did. And oh, by the way, then Biden did steal an election, because the Durham report covers it all the way up to that laptop, right? And they didn't do anything with the laptop. When we now know that not only the laptop real, everything on it is legitimate, and the laptop itself is enough to take down the Biden family, which obviously is never going to happen. They haven't even leveled a charge yet. I mean, they've had this laptop now for almost 3 years. They're not going to do anything.
It shows where over and over again, they make deals with these foreign entities. They then set up an LLC. That LLC immediately takes large sums of money from those foreign entities. And then Hunter takes 1/3 of that, or some member of the Biden family gets
one of his brothers.
Third. And it's always a third. It's always the same number, the same amount. It's a freaking obvious pattern. And then first and foremost, if there was no shenanigans at all, why would Joe Biden say he had no idea about his son's business dealings when we know for a fact, survey says that was a lie?
Well, I can tell you this right now. I can say this I'm a father. You're a father. I can say this for all fathers. If any of my kids were involved in any kind of a business, I would know about it. The idea that I wouldn't know about it is be absurd to me. It's absurd that Joe Biden can break bread, be with his kid, travel all over the world with him, go to China with him, go to the Ukraine with him, go to Ireland with him just last month, eat Sunday dinner with him, have him over to the White House 8 million times, and they never talked about politics or business. It's absurd.
But that's like every revelation from this report, from Comer's investigation. It's all shit we already knew. It's just that there's this evidence now. So now we have
The bank
clear
records and everything else
present
to back it up.
evidence that
That's
this
called a
actually
RICO.
happened.
Right. That's a RICO.
Not that
right?
it'll
case.
mean anything, but whatever.
Right. But that's a RICO case, right?
It should
because the whole idea of building your criminal syndicate this way is so that you can't exactly point to who's doing what and where the money's going. That's the whole point of it.
But the military industrial complex wants Joe Biden in there to stay in there, right? Big pharma wants Joe Biden to stay in there. You know, like every major power structure, the CIA, because he's compromised, so that he'll do whatever they want.
BlackRock, the world banking institutions, all of it.
Yes, BlackRock. Enough said. You know, Warren Buffett. All these people want Joe Biden to stay, right? Or he's
George Soros,
because he's a little puppet, and he can continue to run his little crime syndicate because they want to know he's compromised. Because again, like they got the goods on him.
And here's the thing. But you said his little business. Compared to these guys that we're talking about, his hundreds of millions of dollars are chump change, dude. They're nothing to these people. Nothing. BlackRock controls, what is it, $9 trillion? What?
Did you know we just found out in a leak that Russia is still selling Ukraine fuel?
I'm not surprised by that.
At like 20% of the price of what we buy it for personally here.
Sure.
And we're still buying fuel for them from
ourselves for 5 times the amount of money. Why don't we just buy it from Russia at really cheap prices and give it to the Ukraine? No. And now, of course, even Saudi Arabia has told us to go pound sand. Is it funny? I just heard Jean-Pierre Lacringe. and
a little pygmy friend.
She actually said this past week that we're producing more oil product at home than any time in our history. These people literally believe the shit that comes out of their mouth at this point. That's objectively false. And Peter Ducey was going to ask a question, but he was laughing so hard he couldn't. Yeah. And even the Dems in that room that are working for the New York Times were literally laughing like that's fucking absurd. But that woman, we've talked about it before. We've seen some bad press secretaries, but she takes the cake, man. Holy shit.
And the left just pretends like it's not happening.
Yeah, like everything's fine.
Just like the fact that John Fetterman is standing there in his basketball shorts
and a hoodie,
muttering, and just
incoherently.
Like the fact that Joe Biden doesn't know where the fuck he's at half the time. Like we're living in freaking clown world, dude, and half the public just won't admit it. And then worst of all, like not only will they, like I said before, will they like just immediately call you a name because they don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So they just have to label you as something that they can easily dismiss, straw man you. But like what they've been doing to these FBI whistleblowers, they're now, I don't know if you know this, but the left is making these guys out to be traitors, who the reason why they were let go from the FBI was because they were involved in covering up the January 6th plots, and they were involved in it on some of the level, and it's all just made. It's all lies.
It's all made up. The whole thing's a lie. And
I was on Twitter the other day, and I saw like somebody sharing video testimony from these guys, and there was a whole fucking army of trolls saying these guys aren't heroes, they're traitors. The only reason they were let go from the FBI is because they were part of a coup or fucking insurrection, and I'm like, that is just absolutely bullshit. So that must be what CNN is claiming.
Well, this is what they're all claiming now, right? That these guys are the bad guys, because one of the guys who blew the whistle, what he was saying was, these people that you're having us investigate and that you're having us go over haven't done anything wrong. There's no reason for us to be investigating them. Just because somebody's car happened to drive by a camera, we could get a picture of the license plate on January 6th, doesn't mean we destroy their fucking lives. That's what they were talking about. They were saying these investigations are wrong. And more to that end, some of the people that we were holding illegally without even warrants, and they were just keeping them in prison and no charges filed. And they were saying, this is wrong. These people we've investigated them. They're innocent. Like that one guy that they had arrested after the fact, put him in prison, kept him there for almost 2 years. He finally gets released, and then they drum up more charges. And he did go in. The doors were open for him, by the way, by Capitol Police. They let him into the building. He was there for 20 minutes. He was on camera the whole time. He didn't touch or destroy a single thing. 20 minutes, turned around and walked out. They wanted to put him in prison for 40 goddamn years. So he hung himself in his own garage. This is the stuff these people were talking about. And that guy that you're talking about the guy who started to choke up and had to catch himself, right? That guy did 2 tours in Iraq. He has a gazillion awards and Purple Heart and all this shit from being there. He served his country honorably, and he has not even a traffic ticket on his record his whole life. And all of a sudden, apparently, he turned against his country for no reason. It's absurd. And the way they're treating these people and the way that the Dems went into that hearing, they should be as equally outraged, right? Like, this is what I'm talking about when I say, take your political hat off. What is happening to these people is wrong. I also like somebody to tell me, somebody that has a brain and can literally explain in plain English why the FBI's whistleblower laws are different than every single other agency by the federal government. That makes no sense to me. None. They can be suspended without pay permanently? What? I thought the idea of the whistleblower laws were to protect them. Not if you're in the FBI, apparently. It is to make you the bad guy and to destroy your life.
Yeah, so another revelation from these whistleblowers is that there were apparently several FBI agents and compromised assets under the watch of FBI at January 6th. And originally, when these guys asked, like, are we going after these guys too? The answer was no. Our agents shouldn't be, they shouldn't be prosecuted for just going to a rally. You know what I mean? Like that was their way of like saying it's cool. But then later they prosecute these other normies to the fullest extent on just craziness, right? And these guys are like, wait a second, like, I thought we were going to go light on people who were just there for a rally, but you're destroying people's lives. And you told us not to even look into the agents, what they were doing. And that is a full blown like revelation. The fact that Christopher Wray lied under oath when he told Congress that, well, I don't know if he was under oath, but he actually said that there were no agents. Another underling, like a deputy secretary for the FBI, didn't answer the question because she was under oath as far as whether or not there were any agents or undercover agents or anybody like that present. But this whistleblower has said, yeah, there definitely was undercovers there. So,
and Christopher Wray,
Ray Epps,
and Ray, well, Christopher Wray himself, even the right, the Republicans are trying to defend him somewhat too. Well, he's been out there trying to do his best to start to take care of these things. Mm-hmm. To me, it's very simple. The federal government does not need their own special police force. They just don't. And the FBI should be disbanded. See you later. Bye. We don't need you. So should the TSA, by the way. Get rid of them fuckers. We don't need them. It's all theater. It's all bullshit. And by the way, the FBI, when I hear anybody, particularly this comes from the right, that it's only a couple of bad guys at the top. It's the rank and file are heroes. No, they're not. The rank and file know what's going on. You cannot work in that organization and not know the shit that's going on. You fucking know what's going on. Just like the police in New York City or Chicago or in tiny little Kingsland, Georgia, when there is malfeasance in your department and you have bad police officers and you know they're there and you know they're corrupt and you know they're harming people and you don't open your mouth, fuck you, you're just as bad as they are. If you know your neighbor is raping his daughter and you do nothing, you might as well walk across the street and rape your damn self because you're just as bad by keeping your mouth shut.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
these guys don't get a pass for me. If you're not going to open your damn mouth and stand up, where are all the guys in the FBI right now who should be standing behind these whistleblowers going, they're telling the truth? They're leaving them out on an island all by themselves just so that they can protect their income. Fuck you too. You know, I'm so tired of this shit. I'm so tired of pretending that we're going to get it straightened out one day. Wake the fuck up. We have never gotten this shit straightened out. And we are in 1,000 times worse place today than we were 30 or 40 years ago. This is bullshit. I'm done with it, man. I'm so
Did you hear?
agitated.
Did you hear what those guys? Did you hear what those guys said? Especially the one. He was like, I would actually, if I had a friend tell me in the agency that, they had some shit they wanted to blow the whistle about, that the agency was breaking the law about, violating people's rights and so forth. He's like, I'd tell them not to. He's like, because they've destroyed my life.
Right.
And he's like,
these guys
sucks to think that, but like
these guys are going to be hounded by the IRS for the rest of their lives. And for those, and then at least one of them's going to magically shoot himself in the back of the head twice to commit suicide and then hang himself in a tree after he's already dead. It's these miracles that happen all the time with these poor guys. These guys are trying to be American patriots, true American patriots, and they're far and few between, and they're trying to do the right thing. And you know what's funny? Then we get somebody like that asshat, Britain, who was the head of the waste disposal department, right? And they knew he was committing felonies and stealing women's clothing and all this shit. And they did nothing but protect him, right? Because he's a whistleblower too, and he deserves to be protected. But if the whistleblower is saying something that the establishment doesn't want to hear, they'll kill you. And that's what they're going to do to these guys. They're going to eventually kill them, or at least one of them, to send the message to the rest of them, shut the fuck up.
Yeah. So meanwhile, you've got all these prosecutors in these big cities all across the country, who are not prosecuting crime, especially for minorities. They're being very selective. And then, let's move over to New York and talk about in Alvin Bragg's district alone. I think crime is up 28%. Violent crime, that is, across the board.
Murder itself, 33%.
Right, even higher, right? And you've got that going on, but he's spending his time chasing Trump down on, some defamation suit.
And a non-defined charge based on some felony he may have committed by committing a misdemeanor, which the statute of limitations already ran out on, which they couldn't prove to begin with.
Yeah, so you've got that, and then you've got all these other cities across the country who are just, let's defund the police. Let's focus only on, not having bail, on, reducing sentencing. Honestly, a lot of things that I would be behind if there was another thing you came behind it with, right? You can't just take things away you were doing for the criminal element to take them off the streets and then say, well, those things are harming these people even further, which I can agree in a lot of ways we do, and then just do nothing, just dump them on the streets and be like, oh, that's going to be better, And I don't think these people think that it's going to be better. I don't think that the people who are actually in the motions of doing, I think that a lot of people in the populace are so stupid that they're willing to believe that. And a lot of their voters want to believe that. But the people who are actually pulling the strings, and the people, and the people who actually pull the levers in the mechanism, they know better. People like Bragg, they know why they're there. They're there because someone like George Soros put them there. And these Marxists want to see
Absolutely.
America run rampant with crime and
So
division.
do you know that in New York, this the trial, the civil trial that Trump just went through, and lost, which he wouldn't have lost anywhere else except for New York. Um, it was a sham, but they changed the law so that
Hmm.
they could charge him, and they only changed the law for a short, less than a year window period of time, and then the
Hmm.
law goes back to the way that it
Yeah.
used to be,
Well,
just
wait.
so they could charge Trump. That was the only reason. And by the way, only one. There were many cases when they opened that window where lawyers went, "Oh yeah," and they jumped in. Only Trump's was allowed to proceed to trial. All the other ones were denied.
I think it's really important to point out what this law is. So the law was the statute of limitations
Limitations.
on rape,
Yes.
okay, and sexual battery. So New York has always had the law that says after X amount of period, I don't know if it's 10 years or what it is,
It's 20.
20. So now it's been 30 though. So, a decade longer than the statute of limitations. So they said for 1 year, for 365 days, we are going to allow people who 20 years, prior, who, or even further, who were sexually battered or raped to come forward. And the reason why we're doing that is because we don't think 30 years was enough. We think 31 is enough, but 32 is too much. So if you're somebody who took 30 and then you got raped around the same time that this woman allegedly did, let's say you got raped, the same day, multiple rapes happen in one day, right?
Sure.
Especially in New York. So let's say you got raped the same day, and for the same reasons you haven't come forward, it's because you were scared or you're embarrassed or blah, 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 whatever reasons it is that you haven't come forward. They're saying that this woman, 30 years, she needed 31. But if you wait too long, 32 years is too long. We don't want to hear from you.
Right.
Well,
Actually, it's worse because what they said was, if it's been longer than 20 years, you can now file a case, but you can only do it over this period of time, because we're going to revert back to 20 years in 1 year's time, because no other cases matter.
But that's
after
my
that past
point.
20.
The excuse for having not come forward all this time is things like they're embarrassed, their dignity, all of these things, right? But it's like, we're only going to give you a year, to finally do that. And if you can't muster up the ability to do that, and you can't get past the psychological issues of that, too bad. Windows closed.
And this woman, by the way, if anybody was really paying attention to that case, she's a nut job, man. I mean, a total nut job. Yeah. And I, to be honest, not only do I think this didn't happen, I don't even think Trump even knows who the fuck she is.
I'm sorry,
Did you also hear her lawyer had her on the stand, and she admitted that it was quite odd and coincidental that that the exact same department store, Bergdorf's in New York City, and the lingerie department in New York City at this time, everything lines up from a Law and Order SUV episode, right? It's like, what? What are you talking about?
She told nobody else about it. There's nothing else to substantiate this.
And by the way,
when she
claimed to be his biggest fan when he had The Apprentice, and she's full of shit. But my point is, with the word, fuck her, she's nuts, right?
Another Christine Blasey Ford,
right? But the whole thing that's just so objectionable to me is they literally changed a standing law for this one thing and this one thing only. That's my phone. They changed it for this one thing and this one thing only. And then they revert back to the way the law was before. And while they took Trump's case, which the second they passed the lawsuit was filed literally in minutes. And then everybody else whose lawyers were out there going, oh, they opened up this window. So far, none of those cases have been allowed to progress because of lack of evidence. And they let this go through because this is a hit job on the ex-president. Period, end of sentence, just like Bragg's trying to do. This whole thing is a joke. And so just because you don't like Trump doesn't mean that you should want him to go to jail or be imprisoned or to have a run at the president taken away from him simply because you don't like him. What if you didn't like your neighbor? Should we go arrest your neighbor for rape simply because you don't like him? I mean, it's absurd.
So crime in local communities and the cities is on the rise. Crime definitely and corruption in the government is on the rise. Crime throughout the federal elements, the CIA is just so out in the open now. It's just not even funny. So that's been the theme of today's episode, but I wanted to get into interracial crime and some of this like more like on the ground stuff, but we're already at an hour now. So let's save that for another episode. I think we can just do a whole standalone episode on race and crime. But as far as
of course, you far more than me have really great ideas on how a lot of this stuff subjectively can be neutered and we can improve and make a better society through certain ways of dealing with criminals from a young age and keep them from becoming career criminals. I mean, I've read your thesis and it was brilliant.
I have a ton of ideas, but the first thing we have to be able to do is have honest discussions, and we can't do that.
Oh, well, then we're fucked.
So, no, me and you are going to have it.
We can have it.
We're going to have it.
We do all the time. I'm just saying,
people are going to hate us for it.
Right. But for the people, I don't care about that anymore. I've lived too long to give a shit what anybody thinks about. Hell, when I was young, I didn't give a shit what anybody thought about me. That's why that's why my friends are either my family members, and that's it.
For me, it's just, man, I might even care that what you think about me, but I'm just going to say the truth. I'm just going to say the truth.
Yeah, I'm tired of it. We've had this discussion recently.
I'll deal with the repercussions.
Where even when you want to talk about, we just talked about politics a lot. And we had said a couple of weeks ago, we're not going to make some
caveat about Trump.
Right, about Trump every single time we talk about him, just so some of the people listening will, that's just because they like Trump. It's got nothing to do with it.
First of all, I don't even like Trump. Like, you have to preface that every fucking time.
I'm not doing that.
No more.
And I'll say this out loud for anybody who's listening anywhere in the world. I don't really care. If my choice is Trump or Biden, it's clear who I would choose. I think any person that's being objective would come to that conclusion, because Biden makes Trump look like George Washington.
Now I'm going to sit that out. I'm not even going to bother, but am I going to have my fingers crossed that Trump wins over Biden? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's for damn sure. That's just being real. And that's just being honest. And again, truth. Like,
I'm not voting for either one of them, but whatever.
I know there's a lot of people out there that are going to hate on me for saying that, but I mean, that's just the deal. So this is what it is.
I don't care if you hate Trump or not. Here's the thing. I don't vote for a president because he looks good in a suit or can read a teleprompter well, or because he's just crazy old Uncle Joe, or any of these other things that we want to attach to it. Politics aren't about feelings. I don't care about your personal feelings about people. Politics is supposed to be about policy. And Joe Biden doesn't have any policy at all. And by the way, the next Democrat who has a good policy to try to run through anywhere will be the first fucking time in years. Same with the Republicans. None of them have good policy anymore. None of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's for sure. There's nobody runs on ideas. It's just on, like, look how bad the other side is. Like, it's it. And nobody ever in modern American politics, nobody votes for anybody. They vote against the other guy.
Right. You're right. We've been saying that for years, and somehow when you have Jason Voorhees going against Freddy Krueger and you're for Freddy Krueger, you can figure out ways to justify all the children that he killed on Elm Street. And now he's your president. Nuts. So that being said, we're desperately trying to keep these things to an hour. So we should probably do that.
Yeah, with that, welcome to my Nightmare on Elm Street. And we'll keep the discussion going in the coming weeks. Sorry if anybody was expecting one to drop last week. We took the week off for Mother's Day, but we'll keep them coming at you from here on out for sure. Like I said, soon we're going to drop one on race and crime. That should be a doozy and controversial as usual. And we'll keep you updated on all the stuff to come. So with that, everybody, thanks for watching. Stick around for another one that's going to be coming back at you in another week. And thanks again. Take care. Peace.
Peace out.